What is going on, guys? I'm here with another scary story for you all. This one comes from my friend who we will call Lauren. She was sent this email from someone that she went to high school with, and this is the email that she received. Okay, so this was back in 2017. My cousin had just graduated from the same university as me. We both studied film. He was doing work experience at a haunted house, which is a thing in Britain. Basically, these houses are open to the public and they charge them money to go in and investigate if there are ghosts and stuff. So he tells me about this place called the Conjuring House. It's like an hour's train ride away, so I convinced him to take me along for the next ghost hunt. First of all, when he told his boss about my presence, the boss tried to stop us from going, because apparently I wasn't on the team and that the spirits were angry at outsiders. However, we managed to convince him to let us bring me along. On the way to the house, my cousin warned me that the scariest part of the house was room 36 and that I absolutely had to see it. Upon arrival, I signed some papers acknowledging that we were visiting at our own risk and that the owners of the house would not be held liable for any damages or injuries sustained while on the premises. Then we were led into the house. It's important to note that the majority of the paranormal investigators were older. They were around their late 40s and early 50s. So me and my cousin were definitely the youngest people there by about 15 years. During the introduction, they explained that the house was used for filming The Conjuring, but that was incorrect. They meant that Ed and Lorraine Warren, the paranormal investigators, had visited this house. We split into two teams. One team went downstairs with the boss lady, and the other team went upstairs with her husband. Before we continued on, we were all made to stand in a circle and say our names and where we were from. Then the teams split up. The initial plan was that we would go room to room and take photos and videos of everything, but that quickly changed. After we entered the first room, my cousin and I were instructed to stay behind, while the others carried on. Apparently, we were to be the bait. I have no idea what that means, but it turns out that my cousin and I were to sit in the dark in this room, while the others went to the scariest room in the house, room 36. They took a long time to come back, so I started freaking out a bit. I started hearing footsteps in the attic above us, and then I started hearing whispers in the walls. I could make out voices saying, "Get out, leave and go away." Then I started hearing chains dragging metal moans. I was getting really scared at this point, so I started making lots of noise myself. And after a few minutes, the door slammed open and everyone came rushing back into the room. Turns out that the door had been left unlocked and the wind had blown it open. I didn't even notice that I had stopped breathing and I was hyped. Everyone stared at me awkwardly for a second, and then we all carried on with the investigation. As we moved through the rooms, we heard more whispers and footsteps. We also saw the occasional shadow figure in the corner of our eyes. They were always just out of sight. At this point, the boss lady told us to go back to room 36, which was now apparently a safe space. When we got to the room, the door was locked, so my cousin had to pick the lock. As soon as the door opened, the air grew freezing cold. The temperature dropped drastically. I felt a sharp pain in my neck, and I turned to see a shadow figure standing over me. It was tall and thin, and it was dragging itself along the floor. It seemed to be made of smoke, and it slithered through the wall and disappeared. I told the group what I had seen, and they just nodded their heads understandingly. No one else seemed shocked or surprised. I was starting to feel a little stupid at this point, because I was the only one who'd witnessed anything. I was also starting to feel very unsafe, as I didn't want to be inside the room alone. However, the boss lady insisted that I stay behind while everyone else went downstairs to investigate. She said that I needed to prove myself if I wanted to be taken seriously as a paranormal investigator. Feeling pressured by her and not wanting to disappoint her, I agreed to stay behind. As soon as the door closed, I felt the temperature drop again and the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. I started hearing chains dragging once again, and this time they sounded like they were coming from right outside the door. I started to panic and I knocked on the door loudly for help. Then I heard a voice in my head saying, "Let me in." I screamed and hid under the bed. I don't know how long I stayed there, but eventually the coast was clear and I made a run for the door. I burst through it and ran downstairs. Everyone was sitting in a circle on the floor, and they all looked up at me with concerned expressions on their faces. I couldn't speak. I was completely shocked. I didn't know what to say. I had seen something and no one else had. I felt isolated and alone. The boss lady asked me if I was okay, and I simply nodded my head. I didn't want to tell them what I had seen, because I didn't think that they would believe me. Instead, I joined them in the circle and we continued investigating. But it was difficult for me to focus on the task at hand, because I kept hearing the chains dragging in my head. We investigated the rest of the house, and nothing else happened. We gathered in the main hallway for a final debriefing. The boss man said that he had never seen so much activity in such a short amount of time, and that my presence must have really agitated the spirits. He said that I should be proud of myself for being able to provoke such a reaction. My cousin and I decided to leave early, and we caught the train home together. On the train, my cousin told me that he had actually seen something while we were in the house. He hadn't told me before because he knew that I would freak out, but he thought that I deserved to know. He had seen the same shadow figure that I had seen in room 36. He had only seen it for a split second, but he knew what it was. He said that I shouldn't worry too much about what happened in the house, and that it probably wasn't anything to worry about. Now, I appreciate his concern, but telling me that what I experienced probably wasn't anything to worry about was the worst thing he could have possibly said. I already didn't feel like I was being taken seriously by the group, and then my cousin basically implies that I imagined the whole thing. So yeah, that's the story. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.